Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us at this very exciting and by now long day. I'm pretty sure everyone's pretty tired, but pretty much there's so much to see and so much to say, isn't it? As a small introduction, my name is Maria Milagros. I am part of Crecimiento, and I am head of the regulatory department there. I only have 10 minutes to explain what is the thesis behind what we're doing, who we are, and what we want to do. But most importantly, what I would love to present to you is my PowerPoint that I'm not seeing right now.
Chicos, falta la presentación. Ahí está.
Amazing. Okay, so we have to go back. There you go. So I'm part of Crecimiento. Aleph is part of Crecimiento. And my grandma, she used to be a theory teacher. And she would tell me, whenever you do a presentation, you have to talk about what you want to talk about. You have to talk about what you're talking about right now. And then you have to talk about what you just talked about. So this is a little bit of a picture of what I want to present in this 10 minutes, which is the possibility or the current position of economic prosperity through tech, and then Argentina's opportunity through that, the Crecimiento movement, who I work with, as I mentioned, Aleph Pop-Up City, which happened in the month of August and will happen again in December and again in March, and then the way that we're supporting startups and the next steps. So we talked about how economy can grow through tech, right? And truth is that liberty and technology are the strongest drivers of human progress. But at the same time, even though we understand that technology itself can grow from anywhere, because in the end it's something that's accessible for all of us, when it comes to its growth and its development, it does not really go well in every country or every state in the world. It's only very specific places where we say, this is going to be really good for taxes, or this is going to be good for your corporation, right? On this case, we can see that there's some kind of forum shopping with tech startups, which is basically whenever they see that they're not comfortable with the incentives that they're getting, the taxes that they're getting, the pressure that might have from government, they tend to go to those blue zones or those jurisdictions that do bring possibilities to them. This is pretty obvious. They're just going to go, I'm going to pay less here, I'm going to make more here, I'm going to go to these countries back in the end of this graph. Therefore, we can talk about the fact that economies compete, they do not just improve. Therefore, we need or we want an economy that brings and creates a top-tier environment. And this is a little bit of a comparison of how it happens only on tech in different countries in the world. And for the US to build more or less 100 billion tech giants, there had to be 100,000 prototypes that started from the beginning. And then we can see Argentina with a little star. And it does not provide the safe environment that nowadays you can potentially see or you can see on tech startups in the US, right? Therefore, they might get a good start with learning and exploration, but later on, things goes like, I'm going to go down this line with a jurisdiction that's going to make a difference. On that case, we can start talking about Argentina's opportunity and how to move where we are in the scale further up and start competing as we're talking about. Now, Argentina, when it comes to tech and crypto, we are already very well positioned. We have great tech companies, great crypto companies, and also great AI companies that we can see here on screen. And truth is that even though we don't really know it, Argentina is one of the countries in the world with the most crypto adoption. And that's kind of obvious when you start thinking about the necessities that we've been having on fighting inflation, finding ways of saving money, finding ways of creating options that solve the economic problems that we have. And at the same time, Argentina has a lot of talent when it comes to crypto. We can see it here. Because of the necessity that we've had of survival and adaptation and of growth, we are the place or one of the places in the world with the most talent that later on builds great products or goes to great protocols. We can talk about how MakerDAO came from here. We can talk about Open Zeppelin. We can talk about so many different options. But at the same time, we can see how the environment is too aggressive nowadays in Argentina for startups to come and for startups to stay. They just do what we talk about on forum shopping. Therefore, if we go specifically to this chart, not only on how different jurisdictions become an environment for tech startups, we can see specifically when it comes to crypto startups or projects. And we can see that there's an opportunity for Argentina to become that crypto hub in comparison with the rest of them. It can become the place, the jurisdiction, the environment that crypto startups want to come but also stay, which as an Argentinian is a little bit the dream that we have for them to want to be here. And we can identify so many problems that Argentina has on an economic level for individuals and companies, individuals as well, of course, that we suffer every day. It has to do with inflation, it has to do with access to capital, it has to do with the lack of financial infrastructure. And we can see how crypto can bring products and solutions to these problems specifically. Therefore, is that Crecimiento comes along. Crecimiento itself as a movement. It is an organization that wants to make the most of this specific window of opportunity that we have from an economic and political level. This eye of the storm that we can use to really create a change from now on. In this case, we have realized that startups can be spotted to be successful from year 2 to 3, but then require 5 to 15 years to grow. Therefore, nowadays, if they're okay for the beginning, we want to create an environment that in the middle and long term still works for them so they can develop. From that point is that Crecimiento started very early on this year, now in the beginnings of 2024, and started different kind of incentives and different kind of initiatives and efforts to tackle this. We're talking about the creation of new startups to grow adoption, the pop-up city that I'm going to talk in a moment, but a plan that is middle to long term to make a difference. And these are the 3 main objectives of Crecimiento. Personally, I'm focused more in the third one, but let's go one by one. We're talking about the intention of bringing 5 to 10 million people on-chain, therefore the growth in adoption even more. We're talking about number 2, making Argentina's tech startup ecosystem 10 times larger and better through funding and support. And now specifically on this one, and what I showed before, which has to do with the creation of good products that solve problems, that in the loop is going to help grow adoption because they're going to become something useful. And then giving startups 20-year stability by establishing a new and better regulatory framework. Therefore, that stability that they need to grow and come. On that extent, we started with a very big pop-up city. That's the one that's called the Left during the month of August. And from that point and the kickoff that we did with thousands of people coming is that we have kept going with different efforts in all of these areas. We had a lot of people, here I can show it at the pop-up city, how it happened, thousands of people coming. We want to become a catalyst of crypto solutions to go over economic challenges and fuel Argentina and innovation. And this is what I wanted to show right now. The amount of experiences that were happening at the same time, over 300, thousands of people between builders, startups, congressmen came, politicians, stakeholders that came from VCs to different kind of investors, and just people that were curious to learn and to see what was happening in Argentina. It was a whole bonanza from the co-work that we had, a wellness sanctuary, different places for the conference that we put together, But knowing that I have very little time before it ends, to show the heart of Crecimiento nowadays in the middle of Palermo. And we had a passport, we were working with sovereign identity, and we were trying to tackle, and we were selecting the startups that would work with us, that would work on the solutions that from an economic point we need. And beyond of all these people and all the supporters that we had, the sponsors that we had long-term and short-term from Argentina and from every part in the world, is that we decided that we need to keep going and not just stay in the pop-ups, not just stay in this part that's so important for community and to bring the eye to Argentina, but also keep going for next steps, which is how we're going to tackle 2025. And to get to where we're going to get on these 3 objectives that have to do with adoption, that have to do with fueling the startups that work on Web3 and crypto, and also this regulatory stability that we're looking for, we need a thriving startup ecosystem. We need startups, we need founders, investors, VC funds. We're going to create, or we're in the moment of closing with accelerators, not only for startups, but for founders and also for investors. And as well, an ecosystem that goes beyond just the pop-ups, but also in an educational level and different kind of projects like venture studios and others. The next pop-up is actually going to be now in December, and everyone, of course, after the official communication we're going to make, is invited. But how do we achieve this together? How do we especially go to the last goal that has to do with what I do in the regulatory part? And these are 3 countries that showed a great change in their economies throughout the years, with one specific and special institution that helped for that change. We can see how it happened in Seoul. We can see how it happened in Singapore. A lot of people are very familiar on Dubai and how a lot of great protocols or founders go to Dubai. And this is with the establishment of a special economic zone. We're talking about the possibility of bringing longevity for the startups, the people that work for the startups, and all the ecosystem that's around it. the utilization, the choosing of common law, which is key for business, and what we're going to see that we find in those jurisdictions where most startups go. And we can also see how the focus in this kind of startups, but also in the talent and the investment, is what can make the difference. Therefore, we can find different options to keep going. Either we do nothing, and we just see like, everything's fine, which is not, although we're very used to that, and we just let this opportunity slip. Either we fix a bunch of laws at the same time trying to make this change, understanding that this takes time, and even though the fact that it takes time and there's so much bureaucracy and we don't really trust that much politicians, is that can the startups really trust what's going to happen and that's going to stay as a change? Or we can make subtle changes so global startups can also anchor themselves in Argentina. All these solutions are options that are on our plate, but are they enough to be part of that initial chart that I showed in the blue zone, so Argentina actually becomes the place to go as a crypto hub? On that is the option of a special economic zone that we're working on. Therefore, this is a very short introduction on 10 minutes of what is Crecimiento. We're talking about the growth in adoption, the fueling of startups that solve problems so the adoption can grow, and also creating a healthy regulatory and economic environment for Argentina, for tech startups to grow, for Web3 startups to grow. Because in the end, if they solve those economic problems, it's not just a benefit for tech, but for everyone. So in that case, my name is Milagros Santamaria. I am from Crecimiento. I want to formally also invite you to the next pop-up city that's going to happen in the month of December, and say thank you very much for coming and hope to talk to you again. Thank you.